are
program, which is handled by COS, Complete Open Source Solution. And before start this training program, so let me introduce myself. This guys, a couple of 1 or 2 months I have practiced dedicatedly, and I do not have which questions will come because I don't have handy with the questions, and I do not have the lab setup. So I am not depending to anyone should give a lab and to do the practice. I just configure on my laptop, creating some of couple of VMs, and I just practice. Each and every chapter I practice, and I just did all the lab. So guys, I will share you my experience to you so that you will not feel any difficulty while doing the training. And the CKA exam preparation, guys, there will be special class will be there. I will prepare you for examination, and you can do practice each and everything in your laptop. So you don't worry about whether I will get the lab or not. So everything at this program will be completely. One second, guys. So guys, I will share my experience to you. You do not worry whether I have cleared the exam or not. So cost will definitely, if you are not certified, the cost team will not leave you until to clear your exam, guys. So this is just, believe me, this word of the cost. So this is just a small introduction from the mindset. So I will be your completely dedicated Kubernetes instructor. Will help you to clear your the CKA program and with your exam preparation, guys. So this is just my small introduction. And before I start, I just wanted to tell you one thing, guys. This is
Santosh. I just wanted to check. You were supposed to share the presentation, or
I'll share, sir. I'll share. So once my done introduction, I'll share my screen. So let me share my screen also. So hopefully, guys, everyone able to see my screen. And this is a training program, guys, completely online training. So that means, guys, whoever attending from the online, so make sure you should ask your question, and in the chat box you can ask your questions. My team will be there to help you the answer. So we will give you the answer each and every the questions. And this is online training, guys. So I will not understand whether you guys have cleared this chapter or not, because I have not seen your face. Because while taking my offline session, if the person is not able to clear, so I can directly identify it. So guys, requesting all of you, this session is required interactive session. So please help me for everyone. So I want everyone should be the participant, and everyone should ask the questions. So let us, guys, start with our Kubernetes journey. Okay, guys. So before I start this Kubernetes, the beginner, right, guys, before we jump to our installation part and the configuration part, or how to use my Kubernetes, so let us try to understand, guys, the basic, the component, the features of the Kubernetes hosting. So before we start, so I just wanted to show you one thing, guys, over here. There will be one, the couple of websites will be there, guys. So this is, guys, your the Kubernetes official documentation link, and you will also get this link during your examination. So this is the link. You have to familiar with this link, and you don't need to remember anything. So you have to familiar, go and have to search each and every documentation and installation part. Everything will be there. So you just need to familiar. So make sure you should do bookmark on your machine, guys. And there will be some important links which I am going to share. There will be, you will also get, guys, the GitHub Kubernetes slash Kubernetes.issue. This is the one of the link which will help, which very helpful, guys, if you are getting any kind of issues, because you will also get this link during your examination. The two links will be available. Even though if you're working with the Kubernetes project, if you're facing any kind of issues, so this will help you guys, the community, so everyone can help you. So you can see here there are a lot of the links issue will be there which can help you guys. So I will share you those the step by step URLs, everything I will share you, not to worry. So let us, guys, we will start. Our journey will be completely the Kubernetes. So let's start the Kubernetes for beginners. So we are going to start with the step by step. We are not going to skip any chapter. So before we start high level, the introduction chapter, those things. So let us start with the Kubernetes. So in the Kubernetes, I can say, hey, the Kubernetes, the shortcut I can call K8s. So the K8s stand for what, guys? Because why we should call K8s? Because there are 8 characters between K and S. So if I just leave it K and S, if you just count over here, you can see the 8 characters. So that is what, guys, Kubernetes, you can also call shortcut K8s. So guys, let us start with our journey with the Kubernetes. Believe me, guys, this is a journey hopefully you will enjoy, and there are a lot of things you will learn, and it will be help you to change your job, career, too many things you will get it, guys. So let us start with our Kubernetes journey. So before I start with the Kubernetes, what exactly we're going to discuss, this is our objective for today's class, guys. So in this course, we will go through the basic of Kubernetes. We will try to understand what container are and what container orchestration. We will also see, guys, the different way of setting of Kubernetes server. There are different kind of installation will be there. We will see Minikube installation. We will see KubeADM installation. Some student will say, I do not have a 4 GB RAM. I don't have a 8 vCPU. What is the next? So you will also have a steps, guys. You can also practice. You can also set up a Kubernetes cluster in online. So we will see those things, guys. And also we will go through, guys, the various concepts such as pod, the replica set, the deployment, the service. And also we will try to understand the basic of networking the Kubernetes, and we will spend some of quality time to understand the kubectl command. So using kubectl command to interact with your Kubernetes cluster, and you can deploy your small application. So those are the objective will be there. So we will go through each and everything, and also I will share you each and every the documentation, and you can also do practice on the laptop. So the first thing, guys, if I ask question, hey, what is Kubernetes? So what I can learn over here. So before you start high level installation, those things, just you try to understand what is Kubernetes and what is container orchestration engine, and why do we need the Kubernetes. Let us start, guys. What is Kubernetes? It's very simple, guys. If I give the introduction of Kubernetes, let me spend 1 minute of introduction. I can say, hey, Kubernetes is container orchestration, and I can say, hey, it's management tools, which will using Kubernetes I can manage my container environment, and this is open source technology, and Kubernetes support private cloud and public cloud. That means you can install Kubernetes cluster in your private anywhere you can install. I can install in my laptop, or I can install in the AWS server, Azure server, or OpenStack, OpenShift, anywhere you can install, guys. So that is what, guys, is completely open source, and it's written on Go language, and also you can call K8s. So if I just tell Kubernetes, I'll say, hey, Kubernetes is open source system, or which is used for automating deployment, scaling, and management of containerized the application. So this is a small thing, guys, the definition of a Kubernetes. So the next thing, guys, why do you need a Kubernetes? As I told you, this is the platform will managing your container management tools will be there, and this is the platform will manage your application. Managing the application means you can deploy your application, or you can schedule your application anytime. You can scale up, scale down your application, and also which is the support the load balancing, guys. So that will be there. And this is the platform which is available to deploy your application through Docker, containerize. You can, this is, you can, that is where there are a lot of benefit will be there. So that is what, let us move, we'll see few things about Kubernetes. So in the very first few, the definition which I told you, the Kubernetes is a container, and also I told you guys which is the orchestration. So what is the meaning of this container orchestration? Why should I go for the Kubernetes? Why not some different platform? So okay, the first two class, you have to learn container. You have experience to deploy your application using Docker. After you deploy your application, what is the next, guys? Right? If I deploy multiple container, I have the two VM. In the two different VM, multiple containers are running. Is it possible to communicate container to container? Is it possible if my container die, who is going to bring up my application? Who is going to monitor my container? Who is responsible for if my node is down? Who is responsible? Who is going to monitor entire cluster, guys? This will features, guys, which will give you the orchestration, so which will help you to orchestrate your container platform. So let us see, guys. We'll talk about more about the container orchestration. The first thing, guys, why do we need orchestration? What is required? That means this is one of the node you have deployed multiple application. That means your Docker image is ready. What is the next? How do you run it production? And and if number of user increase, how do you scale up your application? And when load will decrease, how to scale down your application? So to enable this kind of functionality, guys, you need a platform. So that means you need one platform. The platform will help you to deploy your application. Platform will help you to automate your deployment application. The platform will help you, if user increase, I can scale up my application within single minute of time, right? And I can see if the load is also decreased, I can scale down my application. So to enable these kind of feature, guys, you have to learn a orchestration. That means this whole process of automatically deployment and managing container is known as, I can say, container orchestration. That is what, guys, you have started learning container. Let us see how to manage your container. Let us see, guys, orchestration. So in market, there are multiple orchestration tools are available. So if I give one example, I can tell there is one best example will be the Kubernetes, and the next will be our the Docker Swarm, and Apache will be there, guys, right? So there are multiple such technology available today. So Docker has the own tools that is called, we can call Dockerstone, which will help you to container orchestration, which will managing your container platform. And the same thing, Kubernetes from Google, and the Mesos from the Apache, right? So let us see guys, and also I told you guys Kubernetes is now support on public cloud, and it's like service called GCP, Azure, AWS, right? There are a lot of projects will be there, and Kubernetes also is a ranked project in GitHub, one of the top ranked project in GitHub. So that is a lot of benefit will be there. So if I give you the difference between the Kubernetes and the Docker, you can see over the next slide. The next slide, guys. You can see here what is the difference, the difference between the Kubernetes and Docker. So I can see, guys, I can tell, hey, Kubernetes is little difficult to make a Kubernetes cluster. But guys, believe me, once you the setup is ready, the cluster is a healthy, guys. Cluster is strong. What does mean strong? That means after you after you install a Kubernetes cluster, next time onwards, there will be no downtime. That means if you want to upgrade your cluster, if you want to patching your cluster, or whatever things you wanted to do, there will be online changes, guys. Online, everything will be completely online. There will be no impact the customer end user. So recently, guys, we have did our upgrade of OpenShift cluster. We have migrate all our Kubernetes project to the next available the version. Everything we did completely online. There will be no downtime. So if I tell Docker, installation will be easy. It's very simple, but cluster is not healthy, that much not healthy, because whatever things you wanted to do, it's required downtime. The next things I can say, Kubernetes will give you guys CLI. You can interact with Kubernetes cluster using CLI, and along with GUI, graphical user interface will be there. That means if you have the graphical user interface, the end user will log into your cluster and they can start deploying application through graphical user interface. That is one beauty things, guys, which is available in Kubernetes. So anytime you can highly scalable will be the case. Anytime you can add a node, or anytime you can bring down your node without interrupt the application. And the one thing will is very important, guys. The Kubernetes can do auto scaling. That means on demand you can n number of application you can scale up. There will be without downtime, and you don't need to spend a lot of time. Within 1 minute you can do scale up your application, and you can also scale down if your load is decreased. Those things get automatically handled, guys. Those features which is not available Dockerstone, because that cannot do auto scaling. Yes, you can do, you have to do manually. The next, the beautiful product will be there. We can say, guys, can be deployed the rolling update, and that's rolling will be automatically. That means today you have deployed one application called Apache web server. You have deployed the version, for example, 1.5. Customer will say, hey, this 1.5 version is not good. Can you please go back to my older version? You can do that. That can be do with automatically, guys. Just click on one command, automatically can be do that one, right? That is the feature. Is a rolling update will be there, and that can be all rolling will be automatically. But whatever Docker, you can deploy rolling update, but not automatically. That means you have to go and manually change the image file in deployment file. So if you do manually, guys, your pod will be try to recreate. That means downtime is required. So those things will be, guys, the lot of benefit will be there in the Kubernetes, and Kubernetes has inbuilt logging and monitorings will be there, which is inbuilt, which will help you to track your Kubernetes cluster. And Docker does not have any tools. You should install third-party tools, ELS, Elastic, should be used for logging and monitoring. So this is a high level of the difference between the Kubernetes product and the Docker Swarm product. So this is just the summarize what I discussed. I just discussed very simple. Before we start Kubernetes, what is Kubernetes I discussed, and the different, and what is a container orchestration. In market, there are multiple container orchestration will be there. In the Kubernetes, what kind of features you are getting, and we have discussed. And along with also guys, we have just compared with the other Kubernetes and Docker, some little difference we discussed. So next guys, the high level, the very important, which is called Kubernetes, that is called guys architecture. This is, believe me guys, this is so it's very important, the architecture. And if you not understand the architecture, that means you can't handle the Kubernetes cluster. If any issues with the Kubernetes cluster, you cannot troubleshoot as well. So please try to understand this chapter. This is very important chapter. So let us see guys the architecture. What is architecture means what? That means if I suppose I want to install a Kubernetes cluster, then what I need? How many machines I need? I need how many, the prerequisites are there to install your Kubernetes cluster. So before we start installation part, let us try to understand the basic architecture of the Kubernetes. So guys, if I just tell in architecture, Kubernetes architecture has how many types of machines are available. So before I just going to very details, let me show you one thing over here. So if somebody asks you a question, what is Kubernetes cluster? How many types of the machines are part of your Kubernetes cluster? You just need to be tell there are two machines. One is master, one is worker node. Do not worry, what is master, what is worker node. We will discuss you very details. So let us see guys. So before we start the Kubernetes cluster, setting a Kubernetes cluster, it is important to understand some of the basic concept which will help you to understand your Kubernetes cluster. So let us see, we will start with the architecture. Okay. This is one important chapter. After complete this architecture chapter, I want guys, you should ask me questions of architecture. I will pause my video. And I can pause my this training. You can ask me questions. Once you guys clear this architecture fundamental, then only I just move to the next slide. So you can post your question with the answer in the chat box. So I'll try to help your other questions. So guys, let us start. Forget about what is our architecture. You just start with only one word.
Able to hear?
Are you guys able to hear me, guys? Is there any problem?
No, they are able to hear me.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. Thanks for confirmation. So let us guys start. Okay. Let us start with one worker node. What is this is the node. So what is this guys? Let us start with one node. That means I can say this node is a machine. Which type of machine? Physical or virtual machine? On which Kubernetes is installed. Now what is the use of this node? This node is responsible for to host your container application. That means whenever you deploy the application in Kubernetes cluster, that container will go and store in your worker node. That is fair enough, guys. Now you just tell me, I have one node and I have deployed some of the application. I do not know all, I don't know anything about Kubernetes cluster. Somebody give me one node, I just deploy my application. And I have created two replica. I just guys, you can see here, this is Redis application. I have deployed to replica. Fair enough. What is the next? Customer can able to access my application. That is fine. But what will happen, guys, if this node went down? Some cases, if this node went down, what will happen? Obviously, our application goes down. That means you cannot, end user cannot able to access your application. So what is the next? So instead of deploying your application in one worker node, obviously you need more than one node. So if you have the more than one node, let us start with I have more node. Okay, I'll say, hey, I don't need one node, so I should require for Kubernetes group of node is required. Okay, fine. So I just bring 3 worker node. So those 3 worker node, guys, you have deployed Redis application. That means your application is available on node 1, and same application also available the second node. Same application also available, guys, third node. What benefit I will get if my application running on three different worker node? That means if my second worker node goes down, still I can able to access my application. Why? Because my application is available multiple worker node, right? That means that's fine, fair enough. So this is what the customers required. So I will say instead of one node, we should have a multiple node. That is fine, guys. But how to communicate this node? To communicate these 3 worker node, then obviously you need a cluster. That is fine. So I have one cluster. Cluster has combined all 3 nodes. So I'll say cluster is a set of nodes groups together. Even if one node down, still you can able to access application for other node. Moreover, guys, having multiple nodes, it will help you the sharing load also available, load as well. So this is what the benefit which I'll get. I can access my application highly available, and also my traffic will be divided with 3 worker node. But that is fine. Everything looks good right now. You have a 3 node, you have created a cluster, everything looks good. What is the next? Who is responsible for these 3 nodes? If this one node down, who is responsible for to notifying, hey, one node is down? Who is responsible for, guys, deploying application on worker node? And who is responsible for to communicate the container in multiple worker node? So that is what, guys, the next picture will become, guys, our master. So what master will do? Master is nothing. This is just one worker node. The act as a master. So you can say in our Kubernetes architecture required 2 types of machine. One is called master, one is called worker node. How many worker node? Depend. Multiple worker node. Based on our customer, the requirement. We require a multiple worker node. So how many master do we have? So obviously this is the questions. So if but minimum you should start with one master at least, and you can start with 1 worker node if you do not have any the compute available. But obviously, guys, we will discuss you the next advanced Kubernetes classes. That even if one master goes down, how do you bring one more master? So that will comes, guys, 3 master. This is just a basic try to understand the Kubernetes architecture. What is the role of the master? Okay, so I told you, guys, this is the master. So this master will interact with each and every worker node, and this master will help you to deploy the application on the worker node. This master is responsible for monitoring your cluster. This master is responsible for, guys, monitoring each and every worker node. So this is called, guys, all about your master. Okay. So, and also which will help you, master will help you guys the container orchestration, because this is the platform will give you the orchestration. Whatever Kubernetes, I told you the definition, Kubernetes will give you help you deploying your application, automatically scaling your application, the highly available, the load balancer. This master will give you everything, guys. So let us, guys, we'll discuss more details about our the master components. So you will see here, I just told you guys the master Kubernetes cluster doesn't matter which kind of machine, whether it is physical machine or whether it's virtual machine, any kind of machines using those machine I can deploy a Kubernetes cluster. And also you can Kubernetes cluster each machine you can call node, right? So there are two type of node. One is called master node, one is called worker node. So I told you guys the worker node, what is the use of worker node? The worker node run your containerized application. That means whenever you deploy the application, so the master will inform to kubelet to deploy your application. So we will see the details, more details, guys, our next slide. Let us say you can see this diagram. This is one of the very important diagram. We can say Kubernetes architecture. Okay. So that means when you install Kubernetes on your system, you're actually, guys, installing the following component. What are those component? The first component called API server. You're installing API server. Next, you're installing, guys, etcd service will be there, and you have one service called controller also there, and also you have one service called, guys, scheduler also there, right? These are the service are available on your master cluster. What is the this is the worker node. So I told you guys the worker node will talk to master with help of the service called kubelet. So this is one kubelet service which is responsible for talking to the master servers with help of API servers. Okay, and also, guys, in the worker node you have one container runtime engine will be there, which is called Docker, right? So this engine will help you guys. This will help you to deploy the application. So this next will comes, guys, deploy your application. So we will go through this very details. I told you Kubernetes will give you CLI GUI. That means what? That means you can interact with Kubernetes cluster using CLI mode, using GUI mode. To connect to Kubernetes cluster using CLI, then which command line utility you need to install? That command line called kubectl. What is a kubectl over here? The kubectl is a command line utility which is required to interact with your Kubernetes cluster. That means using kubectl, you can log into Kubernetes box, deploy your application, you can manage your entire cluster things. Whatever you are going to do, everything, guys, you need to do, you have to do with kubectl only, guys. Okay, that is fine. So when you log into kubectl using your Kubernetes cluster, your first request will receive by API server. So API is I can say, guys, API is very important rules of your Kubernetes. So I can say API server act as a front end for Kubernetes. Front end Kubernetes. What is the use of API now? API is a front end for Kubernetes, user, management device, and command line. The all all talk to API server to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. That means, guys, I can say this is one of very important role of Europe or role of Kubernetes, which will help you to anybody want to talk to Kubernetes cluster, request will go to API server. API will be interact with other service which will help your to done your task. So the API is our front end, which will help you to talking to your Kubernetes cluster, and which will help you guys to interact with each and every the components. Okay, that is fine. What is our next now? What API will do, guys, here? Suppose one person will say, hey, I want to deploy one application. So request will go to API server. API, the responsible for what? He will inform to everyone. He will say, first he will inform etcd. He will say, hey, etcd, can you please update. Can you please okay. So what exactly API server will do, guys? So API server will store all the information in etcd. So etcd is we can say is a key store value, which will store all the Kubernetes cluster information under our etcd. So etcd is very important, guys. So all the cluster state informations are there under etcd. Okay. So, what is the use of etcd now? So, using etcd, I can restore my cluster state. So, if my cluster is down, or some cases I'm not able to log in my cluster, or if anything problem my cluster, using etcd data, I can restore the cluster. So, which is the important role of your etcd, guys. So, the next service name is called controller. So I told you very definition. I told you the Kubernetes will help you to monitoring your worker node, to monitoring your cluster, and Kubernetes will monitoring whether your application is running or not. So who is responsible for doing all these tasks, guys? That is nothing but your controller, guys. So controller is I can say the controller. What exactly will do, guys? Is the brain behind the orchestration. So they are responsible for noticing and responding when node or container or endpoint goes down. So this is one of very important service which is responsible for to monitoring our worker node health check, to monitoring our application health check. So everything he will check and he will send those report to API server. And API server will store those information under etcd. So this is called our controller, guys. So the next service called scheduler. So what exactly this service scheduler will do? So scheduler is the main responsible for deploying the application under your worker node. So he will just only will say distribute work or container across multiple nodes. That means if any container going to create, he will just assign them to the node. That means the scheduler will help you to deploy the application under the worker node. So how this scheduler will deploy the application on the worker node? So scheduler will say, hey, I have identified one worker node. That node has a free space is available. So this scheduler will inform to API server. So API server will interact with the worker node with help of kubelet. So this is the kubelet is the service which is running the worker node, guys. So which will deploy the application on worker node. But kubelet will not deploy the application. So kubelet will inform Docker to deploy the application, right? So same thing, guys. When you deploy the pod, you should have the IP address and the port details, all the application details. He will capture under kube-proxy server. So kube-proxy is a service which will store all your endpoint information. So using the kube-proxy will help you to interact with your one container to one node to second node. Those things will help you. So this is all about, guys, the master. So if I summarize, if I ask question in master, how many services are running? So I can say master has the 4 important services running, which is called API server, second called etcd, next will be, guys, a controller, and the next will be the scheduler. right? And the worker node, how many services are running? Worker node, the main service called kubelet service, and the next will be the Docker, right? And the Docker will help you deploy the application. So this is one of the very important things, guys. If when you attend the interview, they will ask you a question, can you tell me the component of the master service? So do not worry, because we will discuss you very detailed depth, the advanced Kubernetes class. We will also show you how to install etcd. We will also show you guys how to take backup of our etcd cluster. Those things we'll see, guys. But right now, just try to understand master has how many components running, in worker node how many components are running. So before I just moving, guys, I just want you should ask me question. So if you have any kind of doubt on this master component.
Santosh, could you explain one more time about etcd and kubelet?
Okay, sure. So see here, in Kubernetes architecture, I told you whatever things are going on, first it will be interact with your API server. API, I told you, is a front end, guys. What he will do, whatever going on, who enter my cluster, how many clusters are there, how many worker nodes are there, and how many applications are running. Those all informations are stored under etcd. I can say etcd is responsible for to store all the cluster information, right? All the cluster state information. It will store all the information over here. That is fine. What is the next now? How this application will deploy in the worker node with help of the kubelet service. Every worker node kubelet service is running. This kubelet service will help you deploy a container in worker node. But kubelet also, guys, will inform in worker node, will check, hey, do I have any container engine is installed? He will see, yes, Docker is installed. So with help of Docker, I can deploy the application. And after deploy, kubelet will inform to API server, hey, I have deployed my application. And API server will store those information under etcd. This whole about, guys, architecture.
Sir, can you tell me about that scheduler again? What exactly?
Okay.
And port also.
Okay, see, what is the scheduler will do? As I told you the definition, the master will responsible for deploying the application on worker node. So who will going to deploy, guys? So first, API server will inform to scheduler. Scheduler will see whether in my worker node has any space is available, or this application will fit to on which worker node. So scheduler is responsible for deploying the application on worker node. So he will identify in your cluster on which node you have a free space are available. So same thing, those information he will inform to API server. And API server will talk to kubelet to deploy your application. So you, if anybody asks a question, scheduler is responsible. Scheduler will which is help you to deploy the application on worker node. So if you just go into the next slide, guys, if you wanted to see over here what exactly this master will do, what is etcd, what is a scheduler, and what is API server, all details will be there. So before I just going through again details, yeah. So is that clear? What is the scheduler, etcd, and kubelet? Any questions?
No, one thing is there that proxy will be capture the data only,
Yeah,
right? What
yeah,
data?
kubeproxy, what exactly kubeproxy will do? When kubelet will inform to Docker, hey, can you kindly deploy one application? That means those application information, that means the port IP address, what is the port number, how this port will interact with the other worker node, the IP address, application endpoint, those information will be stored under the kubeproxy.
Hi, Santosh.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Suresh here. Santosh, yeah, thanks for explaining the whole thing nicely. I just got a question here. The question would be with regards to the capacity. Now, the capacity of the cluster in terms of the number of containers to be spawned, dynamically, is all coming from a set of information or some sort of dynamic database somewhere. So where would that be? I'm guessing it's on etcd. Am I correct?
Okay. So your question's answer will be you correct ETCD, but there will be one as you told how come dynamically deploy your application when the load is increased, right? So those things there will be one the HPA will be there. So horizontal pod autoscaler, you just need to be create one HPA in your project so that HPA will check your application uses. So you'll say, hey, if my application use 80% of RAM and CPU, please create one more pod, right? There is one the objective called Kubernetes object called HPA. So we will see that one later. And those all the information, guys, as I told you guys, whatever things going on your cluster, the all whole informations are stored under our etcd.
Okay, thanks, Santosh. There's one more question which runs down to the basics there. You said the Docker swarm is not, uh, it, it cannot be a healthy cluster. When you say it's not a healthy cluster, I am assuming it will not be a stable cluster.
No,
Am I
so
correct?
exactly. So I'll say that one. The Docker, I'm not a Docker Swarm, which is one container orchestration tool, which Docker has own product of a container orchestration that is called Docker Swarm.
Yes.
So not stable. That means the installation will be easy, but if you wanted to after deployment, like if you want to change the version of your application, then require downtime, right? And if you want to upgrade your the Docker version, again it's required downtime. So that is nothing but you will each and every task you will feel require a downtime. You have to inform to the customer, hey, I'm going to changing this the version, so require a downtime. So customer also feel even if you deploying the application, changing the version, rolling back, those everything should be taken care. So it's required downtime only. But if I talking about Kubernetes, those will be automatically, guys. You will not feel any downtime. That is why I told you. And even after you install Kubernetes cluster, there will be not required downtime even if you do patching, upgrade, any kind of rollback. So whatever you are going to do, everything will be, guys, online.
So it's, in other words, it's like a Microsoft server going up and down for everything you need a downtime. Oh yeah, understood. Thank you, Santosh. Nicely explained. Thank you, thanks.
Anything else, guys? Before we jump to thing, because you just need to try to understand, guys, this architecture, because this is the only whole things your journey will be start with the architecture only. And this is one questions you will, there are a lot of question if you're planning to attend the interview, they will ask you, can you explain me the how the master is working and the whole things, right? So these are the things will be there. But don't worry, guys, in advanced Kubernetes class, we will see each and every component very details. We will see each and every component installing, how to install, how to remove, if this is a down, how to bring up, those things we will see. But you just need to be clear the concept, what is use of each and every service and responsible. Yeah.
What is port?
Okay, don't worry. We will see very details. So the pod is nothing but in the Docker session class you have learned how to deploy the application, right? So when you deploy the application in Docker, you will see this is my container. So in the Kubernetes, I can say this is pod. The pod is nothing but which has multiple container, right? So don't worry, we will go to the very details the pod, but here you can say your application, I can say, hey, this is my instance, hey, this is my pod. But the Kubernetes will not directly deploy as a container. He will create a pod. Inside the pod, he will keep your container. Yes, any questions, guys, before I jump?
No, fine, fine.
All are clear. So
Yeah.
I will ask you the questions.
Sure.
Yes.
Uh, okay, next, guys. Let us say we will talk about. As I told you, I have already discussed master. So if you just read this documentation, so same thing. Master is responsible for managing your complete cluster, and you can access to master cluster um, using CLI mode and the graphical mode, guys. And the master will be completely watch your the node in the cluster, and which will help you to orchestrate your container on the worker node, right? And if and fault tolerance will be there, guys. So if any one node down, or if any worker node also down, you don't worry, because you have multiple worker node. So that will help you to stable your the application. So that is, guys, all about master. And the master has some of the important components are available, which is called etcd, scheduler, controller, and API server. So hopefully everybody clear this all four components. So same thing, etcd I already explained you, which will help you to store key value store, and using etcd you can restore your cluster. That is responsible for store your cluster state information. So same thing, guys, the scheduler is responsible for distributing works or container across the multiple node. And this is just only, he will check any container want to create. He will just tell, yeah, this container will go to node 1. He will just inform to the worker node. So this is helpful, guys. Okay, so API server, I have explained you what is API server, and the controller manager also will be there, guys. This is only the service, it's very important service, which will monitoring your cluster. He will check if any node went down. He will try to move those load to next available node, and he will just try to check each and every application endpoint. So this is just summarize of your, guys, um, the cluster manager, API server, etcd, scheduler, all things. And also I have already explained you what is the kubectl command will do. So the kubectl is command line utility. Using kubectl command, you can interact to your cluster, and you can deploy your application. So those things will be taken care of by kubectl command, guys. So any questions as of now?
Yes, Santosh, sorry, I have another question. Maybe it is out of the way. This etcd, what I'm understanding, it's a key value pair kind of database. If for some reason, like any other database, for some reason, okay, that database goes down, if you have just a single master, does it have the capability of self-healing, or does it
Yeah.
repair itself or repair its indexes? Because in an enterprise, this database can blow up in size, it can grow in size, and so is there some sort of management tool to manage the etcd, or?
Exactly. So let me give you answer for your questions. So as I told you, guys, I told you this is basic Kubernetes architecture. So in enterprise, there will be multiple master and multiple etcd will be there. So even if one master goes down, still the cluster is up and running. But as you say, guys, if you have one master node, obviously if etcd is corrupt, then there is outage, because you cannot log into the cluster, you can't deploy your application, right? Those will help it. But don't think that your complete cluster will down. Cluster will down for some moment, but you can restore your cluster with help of the etcd. There are some couple of commands will be there to restore the etcd, because etcd will be always, he will taking a back of your cluster state, and he will keep those information under your etcd database. So using those database you can restore. But as a industry, this one master 2-node, that is not a architecture of your industry, guys. This is just a learning environment. So our next slide, that the next chapter, advanced Kubernetes class, will be there, where we will talk about the multiple master, multiple etcd. So those will help you guys failover. So if at all, if any issue with your cluster, still you can restore.
Thank you, Santosh. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. So this is, guys, a whole about our the Kubernetes architecture. Those things will be there. So before we jump to start with journey with Kubernetes, we will start the various kind of installation. But before that, I will ask you some of the questions which is related to your today's class. If I summarize what we discussed, I'll ask a couple of questions. So I just want, guys, you can give those answer in chat box. Okay. So let me see if because I am not giving any answer. If you have any query in chat box, let me see the what exactly you have questions. Okay. So if I ask one the questions, guys. So I'll just ask what is kubectl? What is kubectl, guys? Any answer?
Sorry, do you want us to type or can you speak?
Anything, guys, you can type this because this is the interact session. So
Okay.
you can just tell or type. That is fine.
kubectl is a set of commands or a command set to manage your cluster or to interact with the master or the worker node, or rather the master node and the worker node.
So
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks, guys. So I can say kubectl is a command line utility which will using kubectl to interact with Kubernetes cluster. Right. So using, and that means using kubectl, you can log into Kubernetes cluster and you can deploy the application in your Kubernetes cluster. So kubeless CLI tools. Thank you. The next question will be, guys, what is API server?
The API server is the one which will be interacting using kubectl, which does an API call to the worker node based on what we give as an instruction.
and API is a central system which will interact with all the components of master as well as the worker nodes.
Excellent.
Like
Kube API server is responsible for orchestrating all the operations in cluster. It exposes the Kubernetes API, which is used by the external user to perform the management operation on the cluster, as well as various controllers to monitor and state of the cluster to make necessary changes as required, and by the worker node to communicate to the server.
Excellent, guys. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. The next question, guys, how many services are running in master node? Or I can say how many the components are part of your the master cluster?
Scheduler, controller, etcd, API server.
Good. So what is the kubelet service?
Service for interact the master and worker node.
Exactly. So this kubelet is a service which is running in or not. and the kubelet server will interact with the API server, and API server will talk to worker node with help of kubelet service. Okay, good. So there are guys, there are so many questions you will get it from this chapter, and the maximum when you attend the interview, they will ask you question. Lot of questions they will ask you related to your architecture only. So the questions next is, in cluster, how many worker node required? How many node we can use? Minimum how many node?
Minimum one worker node is required and minimum one master node is required for Kubernetes cluster.
Okay. So how many maximum node we can edit one cluster? So guys, there are some questions will be there. Let me open my the notepad. Are you able to see my the notepad?
No.
No?
It.
One second. So are you able to see my the notepad right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there are some couple of the interview questions which I gave. If I say guys in a cluster, in the Kubernetes cluster, the Kubernetes in a cluster Kubernetes support. So that means guys, I can say no more than 5,000 nodes. That means in one cluster, so more than 5,000 node only possible, guys. It should not be more than 5,000 node in the part of Kubernetes cluster.
Santosh, when you say 5,000 nodes, are they the worker nodes or you saying the worker nodes?
Total nodes, which will be include master and worker node.
Okay.
So do you think guys 5,000 node required in one cluster? So I never seen the setup where 5,000 nodes are there. So this is just the Kubernetes, the latest version of 1.18 support 5,000 node can be part of your cluster, total 5,000 node. But any company doesn't, they're not using 5,000 node. But this is one of the common questions you will get it from the interview.
And Santosh, one thing. So when we talk about worker nodes, which will have containers,
Yeah.
so do we need like how many containers we can have on one worker node?
Excellent. I'm just pointing to that one. So in your cluster, guys, you should have no more than 150,000 total pod. That means required 150,000 pod you can only run in one cluster. Okay. And the same thing you can use. Let me. So I can say, guys, this total number of container can use in one cluster. Okay, so the next thing will be, guys, 5,000 nodes should be part of your cluster. Total 150,000 total pod you can run in your cluster, and you can use the number of containers should be 3 lakh. The 3 lakh container you can run in your cluster, and the each node you can run 250 pod only, guys. So these are the common questions, guys. They will common question they will ask you the interview.
One question, Santosh. When you said 250 pods per node, or did you say 300? Okay, 300,000 total containers. So this is the set size. This is the set number. But what about the capacity? Say a container might be a little bit heavy than the
Right.
other ones. So in that case, maybe a node may not take 250 pods. It may take maybe 150.
So this is the just maximum.
Yeah.
Maximum. The based on your, you don't think that suppose you have one worker node, I can run 250 nodes if you do not have the compute capacity. Okay. So you should have the compute capacity. So if you had a more capacity, you can maximum 250 pod you can run in one node. So based on your the resource definition which you have declared in the pod. So those things, guys, we will see, guys. Some question they will ask in one core, how many pod I can run. Those things we will see. There is one chapter called the resource management will be there. We will very details we will go and discuss. But as of right now, please keep in your mind, these are the some important things they will ask you during your interview.
Thank you. Thanks.
And there are some important question, guys, which I told you guys, the master components. So I am not writing those things. So those are the, please remember. So today in the demo session, whichever I have discussed with you, which is also required for your interview cracking, guys. So if you're planning, because this whole course is planning for whoever attending the session, they should certified, they should understand each and every chapter, and also that skill will help you to crack your interview. So we will share you all question with answer and each and every chapter, so that you just prepare those things to crack your interview. So in this, during the time, you should also prepare your interview proposals, guys. So next will be so just I just sharing some of the URL which will help you. That this is the master URL, guys, which will this is the URL which will you have to familiar with this URL. And if you're getting some kind of issues during your installation time, so please the bookmark this URL. These are the URLs which will help you.
Could you share on the chat window as well, Santosh?
I'm just sharing that one. So slowly, guys, I will share you all the tricks right now. So whatever we have discussed the theory part as of now, same the theory skill, with help of that skill, we will try to deploy the Kubernetes cluster using those things we will see, guys. So during this training, I don't need any kind of break. I can do the continue things. But as for the curriculum, we will see some of the kind of break. So right now 11:26 timing. So we will have a small tea break, 10 minutes or 15 minutes break will be there. Then we will start, guys, our the journey with Kubernetes. So now whatever you have learned, that is fine, just little theory. We will explore with the step-by-step hands-on training installation using those things we will see the next slide.